Yo, what up, Knicks Nation? You already know what it is. We got another game of the week preview. We got the New York Knicks in Philadelphia taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. You know, the team that we demolished in the playoffs. And who better to help preview this game is none other than my guy, Dave Early. He covers the Philadelphia 76ers for Liberty Ballers. All right, so make sure to go check him out there if you want to get some insight to Sixers Nation. But before we ask Dave how he's doing and break everything down, make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And also support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000. That's right, I said $1,000 in instant cash bonus and a free pick. Dave, what's going on, man? I like that you came all dapper and suited up for this game of the week preview. Not many people come through with such good attire, but shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. I appreciate you want to show for the Sixers funeral for this game.
Now I'm thinking of that meme Joel posted of Ben Simmons. No, I've seen CP dressed to the nines on SNY, and last time I was here, I wore the Reggie Miller choke shirt, and that backfired. So I got a new look for you. I do feel like I'm like Wally Zerbiak here. This is how he dresses all the time, and he says that his wife helps him pick out his ties. So whatever, I went for it.
Are you telling the world right now that you have a secret wife that we don't know about? Is that what's going on right now?
No. I'm just
no secret families on your side, right? No secret families.
No secret families. I'm just invoking some old school MSG halftime reports with Bill Pito and them. If you've ever watched.
Okay, well, shout out to Wally. Shout out to Bill Pito. But hey, man, you're here. I'm glad that you're dressed to impress today. Let's get into this Knicks Sixers matchup. But before we do any of that, actually, I gotta ask because you know about the Knicks. You saw the trades happen this offseason. First, we get Mikal Bridges, then we get Karl Anthony Towns. What are your thoughts about those two trades, man?
From the Knicks' perspective, I think it was a home run. I was joking to my friends, you think you're going to get Towns for Randall? Because Towns just cooked Jokic in Denver and knocked the champs out of the playoffs. You're not going to get that guy. I know he's got his flaws. I know he had that Maverick series, but he's a legit player. People call him a wimp. People say he's, they remember Jimmy Butler making fun of him for not having heart. And it is fair to say a lot of my Knicks friends say they've lost some grit. You know, the cliche is they traded a hashtag dog for a cat and all that. But as a Sixers fan, I think this is bad news. And you heard Elton Brand say that when he was asked about it. He said, we're not happy about this trade. This is a win-win trade, and we do not like the Knicks getting better. And I think he meant it. So I think it was a home run. I was surprised to hear on the Zach Lowe list now, Potosphere on ESPN and whatnot. There was a lot of mixed feelings about the whole thing. I didn't feel that way. I thought, can I swear on here? I thought, oh shit, because
it's a family show. It's a family show, but you are a guest. But you know what it is, man. So I'll let it slide this time. But family show. We want to make sure all the kids can listen.
I thought, oh shoot, because we know Joel has struggled at times. We'll talk a little bit about that specific matchup, but we know he's struggled with bigs who can shoot.
Absolutely. We've seen that. And look, Knicks have also struggled with bigs that can shoot as well. Joel Embiid is also a guy that can knock down some threes when he's in a groove. So this is what the Knicks went out for, man. They want to make sure that they could match talent in the Eastern Conference. I know they're gunning for Boston because they see the five out and what they can do, the versatility. And so that's the Knicks, that's the Knicks ideology at this point. We want to make sure that we're versatile. We can have five out spacing, open up the paint so that Brunson and anybody else can just meander down the lane and get those easy lay-ins. So that was the whole premise of what we saw. And it's been a little shaky so far to start off. What have your thoughts been through the first 9 games for the Knicks? You concerned? You were like, should Knicks fans be worried? Should they be concerned? What have you observed from afar?
No, I would not be worried. I think this gives you a better ceiling outcome. I could tell you, if I were a Sixers fan, I would be thinking, I wish they had Isaiah Hartenstein back. I wish they had DDV, and I wish they added a healthy Jules, because I would like my chances as a Sixers fan better come April, come May, when it really matters. There are going to be some growing pains, which I baked in. Tim Bontemps just tweeted out that Towns is allowed like 91% shots at the rim, and the defense just isn't there. His nickname is Bodega Cat, and if you rob a bodega, the cat doesn't do anything. You're going to lose some quarter waters and sour powers there. But jokes aside, offensively, he's looked like a combination of Joel Embiid and Dirk Nowitzki, and that is a big problem. Some of that matchup stuff that when Brunson ran the 1-5 pick and roll with Hartenstein, we saw it in the playoffs. Joel could sag and he could protect the rim at all costs, and they lived with the floaters. And what it really led to was Brunson getting in the lane and leaning on guys and getting free throws and kickouts. It's different now. His assist numbers are about the same, I think, but he's not going to the line quite as much. He's not getting up quite as many threes. A big part of that is, as you guys know, he's playing that pick and pop, and he's getting it out to Towns, who's a real threat. When he pump fakes, you see him waltz down the lane against a team like Milwaukee on the offensive end. That's a big, big problem for a team like the Sixers.
Yeah, for sure. And look, that's the whole, like, once again, going back to that point of that's why you trade for Cat. The pick and pop has been legit. Cat just doing a great job shooting overall, man. I think he's been better than even advertised when you look at from an offensive standpoint, his first 9 games being a Knick, and just his shooting has just been otherworldly at this point, especially when you get to have that luxury of a guy who literally crosses half court and you need to guard him because he can just put up a shot. I mean, there was a video floating around where who's putting up shots that's outside of the frame right now. You're just watching practice shots for shoot around. It's Karl-Anthony Towns, man. So being able to draw the center out and somebody like Joel Embiid, who, as of right now, according to Keith Pompey, not friends of the program, he says that Tyrese Maxey will miss tomorrow's game against the Knicks with a strained right hamstring. Joel Embiid is not listed on the injury report. So that means it looks like Joel will be playing this will be his first game, right? This will be his first game of the regular season tomorrow.
Yes, it's a whole bag of worms over in Philadelphia. Was he healthy? Is he healthy? And now he served his 3-game suspension, and he's going to be out there, and he's apparently going to test out a sore and unstable knee against a guy like Towns, 30 feet from the rim. Not exciting as a first matchup. You'd rather you get a Valanciunas or someone who's going to be a little bit more predictable with the way they play. So yeah, I think the Sixers are going to have some major growing pains too. They're reminding me of those Nets teams that never got their big 3 out there at the same time for one reason or the other already.
Mm.
But in terms of, I know there's Knicks fans out there who don't like the trade, and they're using the Knicks slow start as a victory lap to say, hey, they should have stuck with the grit and the grime, and every night they brought it defensively. But for that, I say, if you want to see people play really hard in October, watch baseball, because this is about the future. This is about May, and Leon and his diabolical Pat Riley-esque machinations has put together a way to avoid these aprons for the next 3-4 years together, and they're going to have a fearsome quattro for the next foreseeable future that's going to scare a lot of teams, including the Sixers. And so I wouldn't be worried about a slow start. I'd expect it. You do really miss Hartenstein. And if Mitchell Robinson can plug some of that, we've seen some of what we already knew. Cat is who he is. That's why Minnesota went out and got Rudy, right? Because it does help when you have a rim protector there that's not exactly his strong suit. So there'll be the buyout market to watch. I'm definitely not worried if I'm a Knicks fan.
Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning for another Game of the Week preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Dave Early, dressed up for the Sixers funeral on Tuesday night on TNT at the Wells Fargo Arena because he knows it's the NBA Cup, the Emirates NBA Cup, and he's about to watch the Sixers lose tomorrow. So that's why he came to dress and impress. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, Dave. I got to ask you about your Sixers first. Or now, I should say. I got to ask you about your Sixers. And look, I'm going to start off with the one Joel Embiid suspension because it's fresh, it's new. The reporter decided to bring up family, his late brother. It seemed like it was very touchy subject for Joel Embiid, and I think it's very touchy in general to bring that up and use it in a negative light. What did you make of Joel's response to the reporter?
I think it's relatable. I mean, obviously, violence is never the answer. We teach our kids, keep your hands and feet to yourself, and Joel owned that. But at the same time, this is family, and it was out of bounds. and I don't think the reporter Marcus Hayes was really in line there. It didn't add up to me. You know, you talk about the name of your son and you named him after your late brother, and now you're not doing your job because you're hurt. It's just so weird to even talk about. I absolutely brutalized Joel Embiid over the years in my columns. Why was he playing in Golden State? Was he listening to the criticism from Kendrick Perkins, of all people, that he's ducking Jokic? Get your butt out of the game. If the Sixers are allowing you to play. There's a million ways to criticize the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid. You don't have to go there. If this was Michael Jordan and we were watching his documentary and you heard once someone called out something about his late father when Orlando bounced him from the playoffs back in 95, and you heard Jordan clock this guy, it would just be folklore for his GOAT legacy, wouldn't it? So
Yeah, it would
I
be.
think a lot of us could relate to it. You're talking about a man's late brother, a traumatizing event, who he named his son after in the same breath. You're criticizing him for not playing, when meanwhile, his knee's not even stable from an actual surgery that he had. And I mean, come on.
Yeah, I didn't like how the reporter went at Joel Embiid. And look, I'm angry at Joel for what he did to Mitchell Robinson in the playoffs and, stuff of that nature, but you didn't have to go in that direction. But wanted to get your thoughts on it, and I totally agree. I
Yeah,
think
criticize him for what he did to Mitch because he lost his cool there. But this is different. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's just reading the room, man. Like, it's not even that hard. Like, keep it basketball. You don't need to invoke anything outside of basketball when we're talking about a player and the game. And, the game is meant to be a distraction, right? And then so let's make sure that we keep it as what it is. And we love this game. We love the sport. No need to start attacking people on what their circumstances are outside of basketball. So I
I
totally
wrote a piece that
agree
the
with that.
Philadelphia Inquirer should do better. I do think this particular reporter had an axe to grind going back. He was pretty anti-process, if I recall, and a lot of his pieces over the course of the years. I mean, Embiid is the embodiment of that process, and so I think he's an axe to grind against Joel for some time, and this
Mm.
was obviously a bizarre moment for him.
Yeah,
But
I
he's
do.
since apologized, so.
Well, an apology only goes far as how much like the actual means further down the line. So good to hear that he apologized. But I do agree. The Philadelphia Inquirer does need to, improve, especially with one Keith Pompey, especially when he said, Joel Embiid punched when it was a shove,
It wasn't,
please.
and
And
we know
please,
this.
accurate reporting.
We're all in New York, and you guys do what you do in part because you were dissatisfied with the coverage. You know, how many times have we read a New York reporter absolutely blasting the Knicks for something that we thought was unfair when we're like, there is no shortage of things to criticize what Danilo Gallinari and Wilson Chandler did out there last night. You didn't have to do this. And so this is why you guys do what you do. And I do think it's a great service to give everyone that kick in the butt to say, hey, look, man, KnicksFanTV's doing it. Do a little more of that stuff.
For sure. Appreciate the support, my guy. So now talk about Joel Embiid. Let's talk about the start of the Philadelphia 76ers. You talk about you had no Joel Embiid, you had no Paul George to start because he hyperextended his knee. Now you got Tyrese Maxey who's dealing with an injury. It just seems just a revolving door of, as you said, like you never got to see the Nets big three play together. At this point, we've yet to see the Philadelphia 76ers big three play together. What's the pulse around Sixers Nation right now?
Sixers fans have been through it all with the process, the post process, the broken feet, the orbital bones, the James Harden hamstrings that never heal. And now we're joking that I hope Maxie hasn't called James for advice on how to rehab a hammy because it'll never heal. Um, and yet, and so, yeah, it's down. Everyone's down in the dumps, and everyone is very worried to see. You know, the question here is essentially the $1 million question: Does Joel have an injury, or is the new normal going to be what we used to hear about with Chris Paul? Like, you've had a full meniscus. Is there bone on bone stuff going on? Is this a risk for arthritis down the future? And some of the sad stories we've heard of guys who had to hang it up early. What's he going to look like? I don't know, and that's going to be the big question. Right now, the Knicks are third overall in title odds. It's a pretty good place to be. So if you're worried about 4 and 5, I'm looking at their schedule. It looks to me like they could rattle off 6 of the next 7, depending on that Sixers game, or 7 in a row. And the vibes are going to sound a whole lot different. And so in Philadelphia, if they ever are able to get the big three back out there, even if they wind up scrapping as hard as they can to avoid the play-in, maybe Morey has to spring for that trade. He's got 3 picks in that 2029 unprotected Clippers pick. Maybe he has to pull the trigger a little more quickly than he was hoping. He likes to strike at the deadline. Does he do something now to keep them afloat? I don't know.
Yeah, and look, the Sixers team is a team that, due to injury last season, missed just making the playoffs outright, and then they had to go through via play-in. Is that a concern for this year too? Like, is it looking like that's going to be the direction? Well, what are your thoughts right now?
Yeah, if Maxi misses a couple weeks, what's he going to look like when he returns? I don't know. He's 24 years old, so maybe he'll be fine. But maybe, Steve Nash with the Nets, when I cover them, used to say, we think that it takes as much time back as you missed to really feel yourself again. And Kevin Durant essentially agreed with him. If you miss 3 months, it's going to take 3 months of being back on the court to feel you. So where is Maxi going to be? There are 14 remaining back-to-backs on the schedule, and I know Joel won't be playing in those, and I hope Paul George isn't playing in them all. So that's some L's right there. That's some L's right there. And so there is a very realistic chance that they are a play-in team, or a team who's desperately clawing to avoid the play-in. That being said, they have 2 wins, and they are like just a few games out of the 3 seed, because the East, other than Cleveland and Boston, is off to a sluggish start also, right? So it's all kind of
Oh
there for the
man.
taking if you could get it right.
The East is outside of those 2 teams that you mentioned, Boston and Cleveland. It is all jumbled up right now. I mean, if the season were to end today, Milwaukee and Philly is outside, and you have the Hornets in the actual playoffs. Like, they don't have to go through play-in, which,
Yeah.
look, it's very early. It's very early. I get that it's very early. That's why we're even on this side, with all the ups and downs that we've seen from the Knicks and their performances, even last night against the Indiana Pacers, right? You put up 120, but you give up 130 points, over 130 points. It's frustrating because this was a team that built its laurels on defense, and it's
Right.
not that anymore. But yet this team still needs time to gel. I still do believe this team, once it hits its stride, we'll see an offense that will just be fantastic, right? I
Oh,
mean,
they're
they're a
going to be
top offense.
so
They're a
dangerous.
top offense right now, and they're not even rolling on all cylinders. The question is, can they fix that defense? And hopefully they can, man, because we're going to need Mitch back. We got to see the perimeter defense tighten up. And there's just so much more on that side. But all in all, this is just to my point saying it's still early in the season. Even as frustrating it is, I can't believe right now that the way that the East is already situated, that it's going to end like this. So there's just
Now
so
we
much more
saw,
basketball to play.
yeah, we saw a lot of that last year. The standings are a little jumbled in ways you don't predict to hold at this point. That's fair.
No, not at all. Not at all, man. But last thing I gotta ask you before we start breaking down this matchup, Paul George. He's a new he's a new player for the team. I mean, you also got Martin on that roster too. There's been some massive changes for the Sixers that Daryl Morey made. How are you feeling? Did you even see the Paul George? I felt like Paul George to the Sixers was kind of like it was kind of written in stone, just because the entire offseason it's like the Sixers need a third guy. Who would be the great guy? It's Paul George. And it's like, well, Paul George didn't get the extension out for in LA with the Clippers. So like, where else is he going to go, and who's going to pay him and do all those things? It just made sense that Philly would be that team. But what are your thoughts right now after that move? And just, I know that you're still waiting for all this to gel, but what was it? What do you think then, and what do you think now?
I mean, I was completely baffled by the way the Clippers handle that. I mean, drawing this hard line that we'll give Kawhi, 3 for 150 or whatever it was, but we won't do that for PG, when PG was probably the safer bet at that time a year ago to
The
be healthy in
relatively
four
more
years.
healthy guy,
Yeah, and
which is not saying much.
it's not saying much, and he's got his injury issues himself. He dealt with a knee injury last season. That was the same knee that he hyperextended, but made no sense to me the way the Clippers played that. And as you see now, and I mentioned the Sixers have that 2029 unprotected Clippers pick. You start to wonder about Kawhi's knee and his future, and what that'll look like there, and how valuable that could be at this deadline or the next deadline if they wanted to make a move. Paul George was slapped in the face as far as I'm concerned. I think they offered him something eventually 50 million a year, but he demanded a no trade clause for good reason. Blake Griffin, you ask him about that. We roll out a red carpet for you, we give you all this money, and you're headed to Detroit. So I think he knew that that was a possibility because they made it clear to him, you're not the priority here. Kawhi is, and I didn't understand it. So I loved the signing. We had way too many debates among me and my Sixers friends about 2 stars in depth or 3 stars. And I was always, if you could get Paul George, you don't even blink. Just do it, and then you figure the rest out and let Morey find his Oubres and his Lowrys and his Martins and see how it looks.
There you go. And so now there you have it. Now you got Paul George on that team, still waiting for everything to unfold. But hey, it'll be interesting just to see what they even look like. I mean, look, we're both fan of the rival teams. No one's looking for each other's success, but it'll just be interesting to see what it actually looks like if it does pan out, just from an NBA fan perspective. So,
I think
hey,
it's a rivalry. I think the way that series played out and the
oh, it is a
injuries,
rivalry.
Robinson and Joel can't go to the Empire State Building. We got a rivalry here.
I'm not saying we don't have a rivalry. I'm just saying breaking down this game right now, like I'm interested to see what it looks like just because we haven't seen it yet. You know what I mean? Like it's like even when you had the Dame trade last year, it's well, what is that team really going to look like when it all unfolds? You don't want to see success from Milwaukee because you want your team to be successful to climb the ladder and get to the next step in its championship journey. But there's
They're
still that
getting
intrigue of like, huh, what is it gonna look like? What's it gonna look like when everything's all together? So that's
Yeah,
all I'm at.
they're getting Doc Rivers over there in Milwaukee. Doc Rivers. And the Knicks and the Sixers both look quite different from when they last met. So to your point, the intrigue will be there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning for another game of the week preview. With me on the other side is my guy Dave Early. Make sure to go catch his work over at Liberty Ballers. Also, make sure that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Let me tell you a little bit about our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Everybody out there, look, if you love to have fun with fantasy sports, you know, whether you're into the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, PGA, soccer, all the sports covered, all right? You can go put any wager you want on any sport possible. All you got to do is just choose 2 to 8 players of any sports. You can mix and match, or you can choose all from one category. Like myself, I like to choose all NBA players. I like just to go up and down the NBA slate, choose my 2 to 8 players, you know, put down a little bit of money, choose higher or lower, you know, Brunson going over for, you know, I chose, what was it? I chose, who was it yesterday? I chose OG. I didn't do it before the game started, but as it was going on, you know, the points start to change. So you can choose higher or lower as the games go on. So I chose OG to get over 30 points. Was it not OG? Benedict Mathurin, because I was watching him go off. I chose Hart for I forget what the rebounds was, but essentially that's what you could do. You can do it at the start of the game or as the game wears on. All you gotta do, and you can all you gotta do is just pull a bit of money down, and then you can choose either the insured or non-insured. So if you believe all your picks are going to hit, go the uninsured route. But if you don't believe in all of them, hit the insured. You know, all you gotta do is get 4 out of 5 right, and you're set. So make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. Also, don't forget, if you're not into doing the picks, you can also do the drafts. Invite some of your friends. You know, CP, I'm waiting for all these drafts to happen. CP, where's that? We're doing some drafts. You, the Knicks chick, JD, CK, myself. Come on. We're having all the drafts, man. We got to get back to that wave. All right. Make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right. Let's break down this matchup, Dave. Let's get into the nitty gritty of this game. All right. Sixers, Knicks, completely different squads than last year. It'll be interesting to see how everything unfolds. So I'm looking at a couple key stats, though, that are really going to determine this game. And one of them that I'm going to start off with is fast break points. You know, I've liked, for the most part, that the Knicks are trying to get out and score, like, and just take up the pace. Didn't happen yesterday against the Indiana Pacers, but they've done so in a couple of their matchups early this season, and I'm looking for them to continue on that success. However, when you look at fast break points scored for both the Knicks and the Sixers, they're both tied right now, being in the basement at 25th when it comes to fast break points at both 12.2 points each. These two teams don't get out and run much, and they're kind of built in the similar principle, right? You have Nick Nurse, who they used to call Nick Thibodeau. Shout out to my guy Will Lou, who covers the Raptors. That was his nickname out in Toronto. And so, you got Tom Thibodeau on this side. So they both have similar philosophies, right? Very defense oriented, work the possessions. So I don't expect much to happen tomorrow, but I do expect this to be a slugfest. And I think whoever is able to outbeat each other in the fast break scoring category, I feel like that's who's going to have the edge in this game. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great point. These two teams are, I mean, for the Knicks, it's obviously growing pains, and it's the addition of Towns, and it's the loss of Hartenstein, who would have been cleaning up a lot of this and getting them out and running. But Knicks 21st in defensive rating, Sixers 20th. So that's giving both of their coaches, who like to have defense as an identity, ulcers at this point. They've got to be feeling a certain way because you got to get those stops in order to get out and run. The Sixers have done a better job cleaning up their own glass. The last time we saw the Knicks, I mean, it was a joke. We couldn't keep Josh Hart off one rebound. He got every single offensive rebound. So they go out and they get Andre Drummond, who's pretty good at that, one of the all-time rebounders, especially in the defensive end. You got Yabusele, who's a big body. How's that going to look with Joel back in there? Because if I'm wrong, there was a game at the beginning of last year where Joel was boxing out and banged with Randall. Joel stayed in the game to keep his 30-10 streak going, but I think sometimes he's picked up injuries on the box outs because that's a particularly violent element of the game for bigs who really battle down there, and the refs tend to let a lot go relative to how closely they call it on the perimeter. And all that, to your point, they have these feedback loops where if you can get stops, you can get the rebound, then you can get out and run. And that's where we'll see some of those. The Knicks have been good in transition defense, protecting against that. I know if you watch the games closely and you're not embedded in the numbers, you've seen a lot of these slower fast breaks where a team will get a good look against the Knicks. But just in terms of straight up the way they record fast break points on NBA.com, I think they're fourth in fast break points allowed, which is pretty good.
Absolutely. They are fourth in fast break points allowed, while the Sixers are middle of the pack. They're 14th right now. So that's where it's going to be interesting, man. Who's going to be able to just get out and just score, get easy transition points. This is the type of stuff that I always preach, saying if you can do this, it just opens the game up that much more for you because you put defenses on their heels, man. If you don't know what you're going to do or what's going to happen next, whether it's just even the variety in a half court set, I like to see teams get out there and score easy buckets just because you don't got to think. It's just get out there, score, you're done. You did it. Get back on defense, play some tough defense.
And if the Sixers can get stops, like let's say Joel looked like 60%. Let's say he looked comparable to some of those games against the Knicks. Not game 3 where he was lights out, but some of those games where he was clearly limping and not himself. But let's say he can help them get stops. You don't have Tyrese Maxey, who's the one-man blur on those fast breaks, and they'll really miss him. So in terms of predicting who will win this transition game, it's kind of tough to predict the Sixers at this point.
It's going to be tough. It is tough, man. I mean, it's tough to predict who anybody is at this point just because it's so early in the season. But we can start to see we can start to see a little bit of the trends as we keep moving along. Something else that I'm looking forward to is the second chance opportunities for these teams, just because the Knicks are 9th in the league right now, averaging close to 15 points, just slightly over when it comes to second chance points. This is a team even built off of last year that likes to work the offensive glass, make sure that you slow it down, get a bucket, and just prevent the defense from getting out in transition, or just prevent, the opposing team just creating a set for themselves. The issue here, though, is that the Sixers are second when it comes to preventing second chance points. They're second in the NBA. They are like what, 12.3 right now. They limit the amount.
Second with Drummond and Yabusele. I don't know how it's going to hold up with Joel and his potentially Swiss cheese knee. We'll see about that,
but still, regardless, the Sixers, even with all of their injuries to start the season, they've been able to manage to slow down opponents and getting those second chance opportunities. And that's where it's going to start to it's going to be like two battering rams, right? Who's going to lose in this instance, because these teams, this is where they both have their strengths. So I'm wondering which one of these is also going to break and for which team too.
Yeah, that's a good point. The two battering rams, there will be blood, and with points in the paints allowed, the Knicks 18th and the Sixers 23rd. You know what else there'll be? There will be lanes. There will be driving lanes available for people. So if you are a slasher, and I have a Knicks fan friend who is sort of complaining to me that he hasn't quite seen the fire that he was expecting and hoping to see from Mikal Bridges thus far. I want to kick that over to you. What have you seen from Bridges? Do you think he could take advantage of some of those lanes that will be available to him? And have you been disappointed at all with what you've seen so far?
It's been a mixed bag, definitely, when you watch Bridges. I mean, there's nights where you look at him offensively, like, oh, okay, I see how he can be incorporated into the offense. And then other nights he can just be, just placed to the wayside. It's watching a Brunson and Cat game, or even somebody else like OG and Hart get involved. And look, I know that everybody is not going to shine offensively when you finish the box score. It's going to be very tough. Knicks had 7 consecutive games where they've had guys in double digits. Tough to do. It's tough to do typically in the NBA where you just get everybody involved who are high offensive driven guys. And I said this as when you watch any big three come together, and whether you want to consider them the big three or not, in any hierarchy like this, something's got to give. Someone's got to be able to take a step back.
I call it a
And
big four.
look, man, I think the starting five is awesome, to be honest, for the Knicks. So like
Yeah, yeah.
I like how it all fits together offensively. Defense is still yet to, as I said, come together. But for Bridges, it's like I said, it's a mixed bag because on some nights you could see, oh, this is where he could be the third option. Then he drops all the way to the fifth. And I wouldn't I wouldn't harp on it as much if you didn't trade as many assets in order to go get him. Like if you didn't trade the
Yeah.
5 picks, the pick swap, and then you bring him in here, and like I understand there's a tax when you're trading with a divisional opponent, but when you look at the results and the return so far, it leaves a little to be desired. But
Have
for him,
you
it's like it's been a mixed bag offensively, and then defensively. If you're just going off of against the Atlanta Hawks, where you watch, you know, Ricochet go off, you're watching Jalen Johnson, and you're saying, hey, we got. And look, I get that Hart was on Ricochet, but still, you have what we've wanted to designate Wingstop. You can't really use that nickname right now because they haven't really stopped anybody. But you watch the Atlanta Hawks, you see 56 points by those guys. He had the Halliburton assignment. Halliburton did what he wanted to do. And even you look against Boston, didn't get much resistance over there either. And so
there was a
there's
layup line from three in that game, and I remember
eat it, man.
from I to my eye, OG's on ball wing defense has been there. And I agree with you with Bridges that maybe there's something left to be desired still. I don't know what that is. But I do remember from covering Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, even the year he was runner-up defensive player of the year, where he could have a really good night against Luka Doncic, and he can come back the next night and get torched by Kemba Walker. And Brett Brown used to say it's these water bug gods. The water bug gods, they give him trouble, you know? And so, like it's the NBA, and some of these guys who are Jalen Brunson size, Donovan Mitchell size, Tyrese Maxey size, they are impossible covers, even for a forward who has that wingspan. So I do think more of it will come together. The pause that I would have is Towns rim protection. What are you going to do about that? Is it Robinson going to be the answer? Is he going to be healthy? Do you need to wait for that buyout market? Because you need someone to play with him to patch up some of those inevitable holes so that you can eventually form like defensive Voltron and just keep everyone out.
For sure. And that's the thing. And that's if you look at why the Bridges trade hasn't really formulated yet, it's like there's only so much you can do as a perimeter defender if there's not a deterrent in the back. Like keeping that
Yeah.
lateral quickness to constantly stay in front of somebody, that's exhausting,
Yeah.
especially when you're asking them to also be an offensive hub too. Like when he runs with the second units, even being with the starters, like there is an offensive responsibility that is yet to really be properly carved out for him. And that's why it's tough because for Bridges, like I said this not too long ago in a post game, they really have to make a conscious effort to make sure that he's involved early. He's a rhythm type player. He needs to get
Mm,
a feel for the basketball, and
mm.
then you can keep him engaged throughout the entire game. Not saying that he loses interest and doesn't play defense,
No, he's
but
a winner.
offensively,
But yeah,
you need to keep him inspired, right? And so that's something that I'd like to see Tibbs, Brunson, Cat, everybody else on this team do. And then defensively, look, you can only, like I said, guard laterally for so long until something breaks. And then when you're asking him, hey, go be that two-way stud, like it's a little exhausting to just go do that, especially when you need help. Defense is not just an individual thing. Like you could be a good individual defender, but what makes you a good defender is also the team that you have behind you. So if the rim protection's not there, if you're not getting help anywhere else, it's all going to be for naught at some point. So it's like that's why it's a mixed bag, and it's so tough to really break down what's the root of this Bridges. Like I wouldn't even call it an issue, but just like this, just unevenness of what we've seen so far.
Uneven is fair, inconsistent, and I do think there's potential there. If you guys can get Mikal on the show and get him one beer and ask him the difference between funneling his men into DeAndre Ayton versus Nick Claxton in Phoenix and Brooklyn, he'd have a lot to tell you about that luxury of knowing I have a rim protector behind me. If he had iHeart behind him, I think he would look like a much better defender. The same way a cornerback does in football, knowing the safety help,
For sure. And look, that it goes vice versa too. I mean, cornerback, like I know CP will love this when you think about the Giants being the Patriots, when you have a stout up front and you can give the luxury of like your cornerbacks not having to worry about someone throwing deep bombs on you every single day.
They only have to do their job for 2 seconds.
Makes it pretty easy, man. So that's
Yeah.
why the defense is like it's more of a collective than offensively, where you can just watch somebody be gifted and just dominate night in and night out. But then that's where you're looking for Mitchell Robinson to make his return January,
Yep.
February, because somebody like him who's savvy at guarding the pick and roll, who's athletic, a true rim protector, a lob threat on the offensive side. Like you're waiting for him. And then obviously the caveat with him is, can he stay healthy once he returns to go through the postseason and stuff of that nature? And this is where you're like, you need somebody like that you had in Hartenstein
Yeah.
in order to like back up or even play alongside Cat. There's a lot to figure out, man.
It's a
There's
big
absolutely a lot to
loss.
figure out.
It had nothing to do with Bridges or Towns. It was just a bird rights thing that they lost him. But bemoan bird rights all you want, because that was a big loss, him going to OKC.
The NBA just decided, hey, we can't have the Knicks have good things. Let's change this cap right now, baby. Let's change this cap right now. But yo,
I'm in your boat over here in Philly.
but look, we've been burying the lead at this point because there is a matchup now. Now that
Yes.
Pompey decided to break some news today. Look, we got Joel Embiid returning. We got Karl Anthony Towns. That's my key matchup for the night, man. The battle of the centers. We're gonna see how this works right now at the get-go. I mean, I wish we had Tyrese Maxey in order to see both teams starting five fully healthy, so that way we can get an idea of what this matchup could look like, man. Like, what is
what's
it really gonna
happening in
look
the
like?
NBA? Everybody's hurt already.
Hey, man, I don't know. I have no idea. Regardless, Cat, we know what he is offensively. Beast, monster. He's been doing a phenomenal
Monster.
job right now, just putting the ball in the hoop. We know
Whatever
what
you
Embiid can do
thought,
too.
whatever you thought of Towns in Minnesota as a Knicks fan, he's been better as advertised here
He's
in New
been
York already.
for
Yeah.
sure. He's been making it easier to get on his side, especially right now. Postseason's gonna be
Rebounding
something. But
totals.
but right now, man, he is winning over Knicks fans by the way that he is battling. You see him, working the post, battling the post, taking hard fouls. That's the stuff that you want to
Dunks.
see. So he's
Three.
doing
Yeah.
that, man. But you know
Did you
who's
see
gonna do
that
that
moment,
too?
Joel?
Joel Embiid,
Did
man.
you?
And this is the thing. This is an MVP, a guy who can also put the ball in the hoop. And so this is where, we'll see how healthy Joel is tomorrow. But I'm looking forward to this matchup because I feel like this is also, you're not only thinking about Boston, you're also thinking about the Sixers and so how challenging that was offensively for the Knicks, right? And granted, we were closer to a skeleton team when we faced them. This is why you also make the trade for Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges. So let's see what this looks like between Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns. What are you gonna say though?
Yeah, that's a big problem for Joel because we mentioned it earlier. Porzingis, Joel forced to feel like he's got to get out there. I mean, if you put a guard like we don't have Maxi, if you put a guard like Lowry, or even if they run out Jared McCain, who dropped 27 in his last game out there, that's a 1-5 pick and roll with big problems for Philadelphia. Because if I'm Nick Nurse, I do not want to see Joel chasing that far out. And what are you going to do? Like, did you see? You remember the game against Milwaukee where Brooke Lopez was all the way out of his comfort zone. He loves to sit back and protect the rim and just put his big gargantuan arms up. He was out there in Towns completely contesting his shot, and Towns drains it, and Brook just shrugs like, what can I do about that? And so that's a factor here. And it's not an ideal matchup for Joel's first game back because I think there is going to be quite a bit of lateral movement he's going to be asked to do. I mean, I was half joking. Do you put him on a guy like Josh Hart and allow him to roam a little bit because you need him patrolling the paint. If he's not patrolling the paint, the Sixers are going to remain a team that can't protect the paint, which they've been. And there will be lanes, like we said, there will be driving lanes. I expect Towns to get the better of him. It's Joel's first game back. I mean, if you could play in the Olympics, even though you load manage your way through the Olympics, and then those months go by and you're not ready for the beginning of the season, it's not a good thing. It's something's wrong here. They mentioned an instability. If there's an instability in that knee, if there's any bone-on-bone stuff causing pain, if I'm him, I'm just trying to get through one game healthy, and I'm not going to kill myself for this win. And so I don't see how he's going to be able to slow down Towns if he's guarding him. It was different last year. I mean, we talked about it. Brunson, Hartenstein pick and roll was lethal, but Joel could sag back and wait, and now he can't.
Absolutely. And look, I know you say, hey, don't rush it. Don't go too crazy. It's your first game back. Think about your health, but emotions play into this, man.
Not in his DNA. Not in his DNA.
You know how it all goes, man. Anybody who comes
in-season
back,
televised, not in his DNA.
This is the end. This is the first game of the NBA, the Emirates NBA Cup. So look, there's a little bit of stakes on the line for this one, man. So I don't expect Joel to. If he really holds it back, I don't think on a national televised game too. I think that'd be a little tough, but I understand your sentiment.
The other problem is, are you scared that he's going to get so hyped that he throws one off the backboard to himself and lands off?
Oh, like he did in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
don't get too hyped and don't get too lackadaisical.
Hey man, it's sometimes you lose it, man. That's what I'm saying. Like I know what fans are hoping for, but like, hey, look, and we get the same feeling too, man. Look, Cat has had his injury issues, although I'm not as worried about him, but I'm more so worried about OG because every time I watch OG go for a board, anything he does, how he attacks, and he's on the ground, I'm like, is this it? Same thing with Mitch, man. When Mitch is back, I'm gonna be doing the same thing.
I don't know if they would have defeated Indiana in Game 7 with him healthy because of the way they lost, but he was a huge loss, and he does have a scary history. So he's a guy to certainly. I know the fans are chirping. Why the starter's playing so many minutes? Why is Tibbs running this like this is the Final Four already? But that's a guy I'd be careful with for sure because when he's right, which he has been, and his defense is lights out.
You're trying to activate the Minutes Police now who are tuning into the show. We ain't going to do that right now. Tune into Knicks Weekly later, and we'll talk about the Minutes Police.
McBride.
All right. We're going with a 6.5 man rotation. Best and believe. All right, so we already covered the matchup, key matchup. We did all this. One more thing before I ask you, like, how do you think this game is going to end? X Factor, man. And since you're the guest, I've got to ask you because I feel like my X Factor can just be on repeat every single week until maybe until we're fully healthy, but who knows? So who's your X Factor for this matchup?
I was thinking, I'm watching Buddy Hield, who was on the Sixers last year, shoot 49% from three on 9 threes a game. And I'm thinking, well, we got Oubre and Caleb Martin for that amount of money. Do we miss Buddy? So I got to pick either Oubre or Martin as an X factor here. I can't pick Jared McCann. I know he dropped 27, but I don't know if Nick Nurse is going to go back to him. So because Kelly Oubre did win us a game at the Garden last year by playing pretty well, it was the game where DDV tackled him. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with KO here, KOJ.
Okay.
Who do you got? Who's your X factor?
Kelly Oubre Jr. That's gonna be your X factor. Okay. Do they actually call him KOJ? Like, who is this? Just you, or who calls him KOJ?
Not outside Philly.
Okay, I'm about to say I've never heard that one in my life, but all right. All right, for if that's what Philly Nation wants to do, if that's what 76ers Nation wants to do.
Drew Hanlen's worked with him. He calls him KO.
KO. The only KO I know is Kyle O'Quinn. All right.
He'll be at your bar mitzvah if you need one.
That's for sure. Taking Spirit Airlines on the way there. But look, My X factor could be on repeat every single week. It's Mikal Bridges, man. We talked about it, and this is a guy that just you got to find the groove, man. The
He's
amount
too
of
good to be an X Factor. How is he an X Factor? Come on,
because he
Mikal.
because he and that's the thing, right? He shouldn't
No,
be an
that's what
X
I'm
factor,
saying.
but
That's
he's
what I'm
like
saying.
he's in and out every single game of like if this guy could easily be the turning point in any game for any single night. Like he if he goes off and you're getting a good effort from Cat and Brunson, you should win easily
I
by
saw him in
far.
Villanova. I saw him in Phoenix. I trust him. He's a winner. I wouldn't be worried about him long term. He's finding his footing. I mean, the Knicks have some problems on the interior. I think that's all it is. I don't know that they'll patch it. You know, people talk about can we get Clint Capella somehow, but I'm not worried about Bridges himself. I'm a little bit more worried about the synergistic. You know, knowing does he not have help?
Yeah,
I hear you. He's an X factor right now, and that's disappointing.
that's not how it should be. He should not
Have you
have to be in.
ever have you ever woke up in the middle of the night sweating and asked yourself, "Do I wish I had those picks back, and then we could go shopping with them?"
No, I'm not there to be doing that
Okay.
right now. It's still, once again, like if we're saying it's way too early for this team, I'm saying it's way too early for to have this remorse or any
No, I
remorse
would
about.
I wouldn't have
I
remorse.
would,
I'll
and
take
look,
him. I'll
it's
give you Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, and all three picks for Mikal yesterday.
what's hilarious is that both these teams had the opportunity to draft Bridges the first time. I mean,
So they did. The Sixers did draft him,
I
and then
know
they
they did. That's what I'm saying. But then you get rid of him. Like you could have
please don't
actually
go there.
drafted him and
I'm having
kept
a
him.
good night. Please don't go there. I can't.
So like, hey man, it is what it is. But look, the fact that he's this X factor, and I've already said like how difficult it is to like it's or not difficult, but it's been a mixed bag. That's why he's here. That's I just need to see him offensively just get into a groove. And defensively, you got to step it up, man. Like
Yeah.
I can't be seeing, guys just like easily cruising down the lane. Like if Maxi was playing tomorrow, he'd have the Maxi assignment. Um, I could see OG helping a little bit for against Embiid. That's what we saw in the postseason. I could see
Yeah.
OG probably taking the PG assignment just because you want some physicality. Although I understand
Yeah.
the twitchiness of Paul George too, and is that who you want? But I think you gotta go with your best defender at this point, and that's going to be OG. Bridges still has some ways to go. Maybe he'll definitely get some shots to defend PG tomorrow, but there's
If you
I just
haven't
need to see
seen
it
this
come through,
yet,
man. I need to see Bridges come through.
if you haven't seen it yet, Paul George in his return has had some questionable shot selection. Not Tobias Harris level, but some really, really fancy dribbling and then a long two where you thought to yourself, Maxey was out there and hot. Just give it to him or swing the ball, man. So I do think you might see some more of that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Dave. Appreciate you coming through and helping me break down this game. So let's wrap it up here, man. Who's winning tomorrow?
The Sixers are going to win this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know I talked as if they were not going to, but the NBA always surprises me. Um, Not last year with Boston. We knew that by Halloween. But on a regular season basis, the NBA has surprises. And I think the Sixers are going to get this one. I don't know how Joel's going to look, but I think he'll look enough that between him, PG, and a couple other guys, they'll eke one out. Oh, you know, we got to hope that that the Knicks are still finding themselves. The Knicks have years now to put together one of the most fearsome foursomes in the league. I just hope it takes them another 10 games.
It's fascinating how you dressed for today to be telling me that the Sixers are going to win. So fascinating,
As if
absolutely
my
fascinating.
funeral my
Yeah,
funeral attire.
yeah. You try with the Reggie Miller attempt. I think at this point, man, you just gotta just embrace the role that you chose for today's show.
Next
But
time I'm showing up in a clown suit. We'll see how that
maybe
goes.
that at that point, that's when the Sixers will start, doing things that the way that you want to see them.
I'll rock it. I'll rock it.
I'm going with the New York Knicks winning tomorrow. I think this look, the Sixers are injured. I think you're gonna get Joel Embiid back first game. I expect him to play inspired in game one against the team that he lost to. I expect that to happen. I expect Paul George to live up to that as well. They're teammates now. I expect him to take on that energy and that emotion. But I just think not having the actual guy who is running the show with Maxi out there is going to be difficult just because of how prolific he was in the postseason. So And I also look at the Sixers are still struggling to figure out what's going on as the
They
start. So
stink.
I right
Yeah,
now
you're not out
I
on a
gotta go with
limb.
the Knicks, man. I gotta go with the
Not out on
Knicks,
a limb.
even though they've been up and down to start. They're better than the Sixers right now. So I'm going with the New York Knicks to win tomorrow, man. And we're gonna, you guys gonna try to get your little revenge back at Wells Fargo Arena, whatever it is. Don't forget that we came rolling through mad deep and took over the arena, but we're gonna do the same thing tomorrow and we're gonna win. It's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, the sixth man was there. The 12th man was there.
Sixth, 15th, 16th, whatever you want to call them,
But
man.
it's yeah, the 15th man, yeah.
There you go. Dave, appreciate you for always coming through. Please let the listeners know where they can find you if you got anything up and coming.
Yeah, I'm at David Early on Twitter, EARLY, and my writing is at libertyballers.com. Find it all there. Really, really appreciate you guys having me back. Always have a fun time. Always laugh talking hoops with y'all and getting my stat checks from you.
No doubt, man. Dave, always appreciate chopping it up with you as well. And salute to Knicks Nation for coming through for another Game of the Week preview. Shout out to my guy Dave Early for coming through yet again. Once again, make sure to go check out Liberty Ballers to go catch Dave's work and hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick, all right? KFTV, once again, is the promo code. And salute to Knicks Nation, man, once again for coming through. Shout out to all the franchise channel members in here as well. Who we got? We got John Talento. We got Son from Brooklyn. Who else we got in here? Who else do we got in here right now? Did I see my guy? Who? I see. Oh, there's my guy, Big Daddy G. Shout out to you. We got Santana in here. We got G5 Wee. Shout out to you. Shout out to Eddie Marr. Come on, man. Who else we got? We got Beeman Boy 81. Shout out to you for being a franchise channel member too. Let's get ready for this Knicks game tomorrow, man. Let's get hyped. Let's get excited. Knicks, I know we had a bad one yesterday, but we're going to bounce back for tomorrow. Now, look, shout out to everyone once again for tuning in. If you can't catch the show live, you already know what to do. Make sure to go to any audio listening platform and go download KnicksFanTV over there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, Alexa, you name it. We are there, so make sure to go get your fix if you can't catch us live on YouTube. But always make sure to subscribe to the channel to give us our support there as well. And look, if you haven't done so already, sign up for the newsletter, man. That's where you get all your information, all right? That's where you get Remy's recaps, articles dropping, okay? And that's where you get to support our other sponsors as well and just find out all events. So make sure to do that too. All right, Knicks Nation, we'll catch you later for Knicks Weekly. Make sure to tap in later tonight. We got another show. Stay locked in. All right, guys.
Yeah, we got to squabble with the minutes police of Knicks Weekly, man. They're out, man. The pitchforks are out after Game 9. Fan base is in a panic.
Ooh, producer CP coming out of nowhere. Look at that.
Get your fatigues ready.
Get the fatigues ready, he says. All right, guys. We'll catch you later. We out.